What's going on, guys? This is RichaadEB here, and today I am bringing you a draft analysis. I haven't done one of these in a long time, and this is actually going to be for the PPL off-season league. Those of you who don't know my history of the PPL, I won it and then left because I was changing countries when I didn't know if I'd be able to battle on Wi-Fi and stuff like that. But I have joined back in for the off-season, and I'm hoping to get back in for the regular season when they start that back. Sometime around March. If I can show that I'm still, capable of doing uploads and stuff like that for this league, then that will look favourably upon me getting back into it. So I did also mention in a previous video that I'm changing my team name. I will now be running the Canberra Toucannons as opposed to the North Melbourne Kangaskhan, partly because I felt like it, and partly because I wanted to update my logo and stuff like that. So this league was specifically designed for the PPL to test things out, so that we could see if things were less broken in the Gen 7 meta than they were in Gen 6, and try out a lot of the Gen 7 stuff to organize our pricing, because as you guys will probably know, the PPL prices every single mon individually, which means we kind of have to know how good they are in advance. This league was thrown together by RichaadEB mainly, so we basically were just like, yeah, we're gonna just vote on most things and then unban pretty much everything. Mega Kangaskhan was unbanned, Battlebond Greninja was allowed, Deoxys Defense was unbanned, Hooper Unbound was unbanned, Landorus and Karnet was unbanned, and basically the only new mons we did ban were Solgaleo, Lunala, and we banned Pheromosa because that thing is just insane. Other than that, it's fairly standard league bans: Mega Latias, Mega Metagross, Mega Lucario, etc. We only allowed the Megas that are currently available in Sun and Moon, so we didn't allow all the old Pokemon Megas, only ones that you can get from the battle tree. And I think that covers everything. Oh, and we didn't have prices. This is fully open draft, means it's going to be broken as shit. So that's going to be fun to prep against all season. But, speaking of broken as shit, I was the 5th or 6th overall pick out of 10 coaches. I think I was 5th out of 10, which is like the worst possible place I could have gotten. Some people like it, I don't. I despise it. I would much rather have last, because then, for those of you who don't know, we do a snake style draft, which means if you are last in the first round, it means you're first in the second round. That means you can pick cores that go nicely together. I also, throughout most of this draft, was either drunk or sick. Yeah. It's probably the worst draft I have ever constructed for a league. But basically, it got around to me for the first round pick. The only real thing I really wanted was Mega Kangaskhan. I was like, I'm going to try it. We allowed pre-bank Mega Kangaskhan, so no power-up punch and no seismic toss. In fact, its pre-bank move pool is pretty limited. It still gets ground coverage and fighting coverage and dark coverage, which is insane, but it can't set up, which makes it a lot less threatening. It's been nerfed to 1.25 times, so we're hoping that it's viable in that form, but we're going to sort of see if it's too broken. That got taken first overall. The next thing I was like, well, I'll just grab Magina because it's just a really freaking solid mon for every matchup. That got taken. Then I believe Deoxys Defense went. So after, we also had Tapu Lele and Tapu Bulu both went. I wasn't particularly interested in the Lele because I do have that in another league that I'm in at the moment, and it's fucking amazing, by the way. And Tapu Bulu was whatever, but Magina and Mega Kangaskhan are both things that I wanted. Deoxys Defense was whatever, but I know RichaadEB really wanted that. So I was like, fuck it. I basically was going to choose between Battlebond Greninja. So Battlebond, you can also run Torrent. So if you run Battlebond, you can only run the Gen 7 moveset. If you run Torrent, you can run all tutor moves, but you have to run Torrent, so it's just Torrent Greninja. So I decided not to go with that because I tried using Greninja in the other league and didn't do amazingly with it, so I was like, I'll try something different. I looked at Landorus and was like, you're cool, but we sort of already know how well you go because of the GBA, and from what I've seen of it in the GBA, it's not like super amazing. Like, it's obviously a really fucking good mod, but it's not completely unstoppable. So I was like, fuck it, I'll grab Hooper, because look at that shit. Look at that fucking bullshit, man. Like, what is a switch in? And then you look at the coverage, like, if they'd given this thing shit all coverage, that might be okay, but it's just pick a type, and this thing has powerful coverage to go with it on both sides usually. So like, it gets ice, it gets single beam, thunder, electric moves, fucking anything you want really. And you can power up punch, etc. And the other thing that we allowed for this league is every team gets to pick one mon that can use Z moves, which is a new thing introduced in Gen 7, and you're allowed to use all Z moves. That means I decided to make my mon Hooper for that because I can give it, you know, any of those coverage moves. If I don't do quite enough damage to something, I can chuck a Z crystal on there and nuke it. And this thing also gets a really helpful move in, oh, it doesn't get switcheroo, it gets trick. Z trick gives you +2 speed, which is super freaking nice because that was the main thing that was holding this thing back at all, was the fact that it couldn't set up speed, and now I can set up to +2 speed with it. Depending on the team, I can just do that, get my Z move up, and then just destroy everything. So that's going to be super fun. When I got around to my second round pick, again, I had no idea what I really wanted. There are a couple of things I was sort of interested in trying out that ended up not really getting any of them. It was just like, I never got to use this mod in Gen 6, it's pretty cool. I'm going to grab Mega Blastoise because I like having a spinner. This thing is really handy because of the Mega Launcher ability, which if I can, okay, it doesn't let me type it because it only has pre-Mega abilities. But basically, it gives certain moves 1.5 times power. And luckily for Mega Blastoise, that just happens to be some of the best moves it could have gotten. So Aura Sphere, Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse, Water Pulse, but you can just run Skull and do the same thing. And I think that's actually it, but that's like all the coverage it needs because it has reasonable special effect, like 135 is really freaking solid. Very, very good bulk, and there aren't many things that can switch into this, like a bulky fairy, but if it's fairy that's weak to Skull, doesn't want to get Skull Burn, like a Zoomerl for example, like a Zoomerl is a very good switch into this, but if it gets Skull Burn, then it's kind of muted. Wasn't like the best thing to fit with Hooper and Bound insofar as their type synergy is non-existent, but you know, it's a cool mon and I'm hoping to be able to use it decently well. So next up, I ended up grabbing Dhelmise. So this was while I was drunk. I was originally going to get Arcanine in this spot, and then I was like, no, Dhelmise got sniped from me in the other draft I've done in Gen 7. I'm not letting it go twice. There are other fire types I can get to replace Arcanine if it does get sniped, and unfortunately that was what happened, so I ended up getting Arcanine. But I did get Dhelmise. So this thing has slightly better than Sizzle level bulk in terms of its defensive stats, with a really, really nice Ghost Grass typing, which means it's a spin blocker and that kind of thing. It also does get Rapid Spin itself, which is going to be really handy, and the really interesting thing with this thing is the fact that it gets Steel Worker, which basically makes every Steel type move stab. So I can just run like Anchor Shot, as you see its first move there, prevents the target from switching out. So it's basically Spirit Shackle from Decidueye, except it's Steel type and it's stab. So this gives me a Fairy Killer. Other than that, this thing just has really nice stabs, you know, like Shadow Claw, Power Whip, that kind of thing, coming off base 131 attack. The main issue with this thing is that base 40 speed, combined with the fact that it does not get priority. If they gave it Shadow Sneak or Bullet Punch or something of the sort, it would be super handy because this thing gets Swords Dance, but unfortunately it's probably going to be a little bit too slow to run a fully sweeping set. It's going to be more of a Wall Breaker / support mon with like Rapid Spin, and can be a bulky switch into things if I need it to be. I continued this draft, Pistols and Ute, and it was like, what's a cool mon? Because I figured my fire type wasn't going to get sniped this round. Again, I was like, I can probably wait and get another fire type later. I'm going to try out another new mon in Komodo. Oh, I should be doing nicknames for these. So, nickname for Hooper is Broken Smith, because Brody Smith is a internationally renowned Ultimate Frisbee player. Shout out to Paulie for the inspiration for that name. Mega Blastoise does not yet have a nickname. If you do have any good Mega Blastoise nicknames, please leave them in the comments so I can, you know, pick one that isn't shit. Dhelmise is called Waleed Ali because he is a Australian news anchor, and this thing's an anchor. I'm so funny. Komodo is called Monaco because Moo. That's it. So Moo gives the cow bit, and then Com is like communist. So Eric was like, call it Russian cow, and I was like, no. No, he was gonna say call it communist cow, and I was like, no. You gotta add layers of complexity. So I was gonna call it Russian milk, because like communist Russia, cow milk. And then he was like, no. We can go one further than that. What's a brand of Russian milk? And Monaco is a brand of Russian milk. So that's yeah. Anyway, Komodo is a really cool mon because look at those fucking stats. That stat spread is just beautiful. Combined with the fact that it gets like Dragon Dance or Autotomize if you like going that way, or Bulk Up or whatever. Like it gets like every form of setup you could possibly want. Really good coverage. It gets Flamethrower, it gets Earthquake, it gets Poison Jab. Basically, everything you need for a dragon type mon to sweep, which is really cool. Unfortunately, it's a little bit weak. You know, they made it more bulky than powerful, but that bulk is also really helpful because the bulky fighting type is really nice to switch into a lot of things. Gives you a good dark resist, gives you a good all sorts of things. Unfortunately, it does make it quad weak to fairy, but it does get poison jabs, that sort of dissuades fairies from switching in, and it's still pretty tanky. Like, it's got really respectable bulk, really nice. It also gets two cool abilities, I mean 3, depending on what you're predicting for League format in particular, because like, if I see a Sylveon on the other team, I can run Soundproof and prevent them from annoying me with Hyper Voices, for example, or I can run Bulletproof and make this thing a good switch in to like a Gengar, so if it runs Sludge Bomb and Shadow Ball, it can't touch me. You know, it doesn't get Dazzling Gleam, but that's beside the point. Or you can run Overcoat if you're predicting like Spore or Sleep Powder or something that's a pain in the ass. So all 3 moves, all 3 abilities gives you immunity to different moves depending on what you want, which could be really interesting. You know, base 85 speeds, reasonable, and yeah, pretty excited to use this mon. So next up, I decided to replace my fire type that got sniped from me, and was originally going to go for Rotom Heat. I was looking at like Rotom Heat and Tapu Koko, but Shadi took Tapu Koko after I told him I was looking at it, you fucking son of a... And so I was like, I don't really feel like Rotom Heat, honestly. It's kind of a cut-paste mon, and we don't, like, its viability is not going to change much with the new generation. It didn't get any major buff or anything. I wasn't interested in using Rotom Heat, and because this league is more about just having fun and that kind of thing, I was like, I'm gonna grab a different one. I'm gonna go for Victini, because Victini just doesn't get switched into. So Pixie stats, 100 all around, just makes it really solid. The big thing that separates this thing out from its other Pixies is that fucking move right there, V-Create. 180 base power. There is no such thing as a switch in. It just fucking nukes things. Because it gets good coverage in the likes of Bolt Strike, or you can go a special set and run Blue Flare. You know, it gets Fun Gambit if you want to be a meme. Focus Blast, Thunderbolt, Energy Ball, Shadow Ball, everything. U-turn for momentum. Basically, this is one of the best choice users in the game because it's tanky enough to take priority hits or just to switch into hits in general, and then can just fire off powerful hits in return. It's like a Banded V-Crate. A lot of things just don't want to switch in, and if they have, say, like a Gastrodon, which is going to switch in and be annoying, you can just be like, pop it with an Energy Ball on a prediction. It's a really solid bulky ass mon. I'm pretty excited to use it. It's one of those things that a lot of people, like, for a period of time during Gen 6, it was considered by many to be the best mon in the format. Since then, people sort of figured out how to deal with it. You know, you can Pursuit Trap it, that kind of thing, but that doesn't mean it's gotten any worse. It just means people are sort of more easily able to stop it from destroying them. You know, I'm a pretty creative guy. I can probably come up with something to make this thing not what people think that's going to be, if that makes any sense. Victini is definitely a cool mon. It basically functions as a bulky wall breaker, which I really like having on my team. And the base 100 speed tier actually makes it the fastest thing on my team at the moment, which was looking to be a bit of a problem. Oh, and this thing is going to be called Donnerschmark? Yeah, Donnerschmark, because it looks like a tourist, Japanese tourist, because it does like the peace sign all the time. And Donnerschmark is the guy who directed the movie The Tourist. Yeah, nailing the nicknames. So moving right along, I drafted Thundurus again because I'm original, and I wanted an electric type. I was going to get Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko was taken a few rounds before, and so I couldn't get it when I was going to get Victini. It came back to me now, and I was like, well, what electric types are left? I was like planning out the rest of my draft, and I was like, no one's taken Thundurus, and it's round 6. So I took Thundurus. If you know a history in draft format, you know that I have done very well with this thing multiple times. It is a very easy mon to be good with because it has really good coverage, it's really fast, it's really powerful, and if you ever feel like you're going to lose a game, you can just click Prankster Thunderwave and not lose. So really nice mon for me to pick up round 6, considering, in my opinion, it's probably like top 10 in the format, or up there at least, in terms of how good it is, and the fact that it lasted this far surprised me. Like, I was looking to not get it. I was specifically looking to only draft new things, because I was like, I want to try out only new ones, and or as many new ones as I can, that kind of stuff. And so kept not taking it, and then was like, fuck it, if no one else is going to take this thing, I'm going to fucking take it, because I sure as hell don't want to face it again. And yeah, really just really good mon, and I have no idea how it fell this far. All sorts of initiative, all sorts of coverage, all sorts of power. You know, there are things that can switch in, obviously, but at this point I have so many wall breakers that I can just smash walls down and then bring in this thing when everything's in war down to like 40% and just clean up, and that's going to be really handy to have. It also gives me more setup, because setup is Bay, so I can just double dance in people's faces and sweep them to win championships. Nay! So next up I was like, you know what, I think even though every single mon on this team can function as a wall breaker, I think I need another one, so I'm going to pick up Nidoking. The reason I picked this thing up was actually for its typing. It's really, really handy for my team at this point. I don't have an electric immunity, so I needed a ground type or something with Volt Absorb or something of the sort, and Nidoking was one that fit best. I also wanted another Fairy Resist. Poison is really nice for that, and it's a freaking Nidoking. Again, this is one of those mons where like its stats don't look that amazing, but it's just enough bulk where like it can tank a couple of hits, like on the switch in, tank a resisted fighting type hit or whatever and kill something back, and its offensive stats are just powerful enough where with Sheer Force and Stab on really good coverage, it just destroys things. So like Poison Ground is really nice typing to have offensively. Particularly when you combine it with all the ridiculous coverage that this thing gets in the form of like Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Ice Beam, Fighting coverage, obviously really good dual stat, Outrage if you want to be that guy, Rock Slide in very occasional situations where that's useful, Shadow Ball, etc. All these things just get boosted by Sheer Force, Sucker Punch, you know, and so you can just run like Sheer Force, Life Orb, and just not let your opponent switch into this, fire off really powerful Sludge Waves and just nuke shit. Again, another nuke, my first Stealth Rocker, which I haven't picked up any hazards up until round 7, which is insane. This thing also gets Toxic Spikes, which is really nice. It's a really useful thing to have on your team as an option. Like, you don't necessarily need to bring it every week, but if you just look at someone's team and you're like, Toxic Spikes is going to really help to wear down these walls that I can't deal with, you can do that. So, you know, this thing just gets what I needed. I used Nido Queen before, I've never used Nido King. So this is going to be Le Roi, because my Nido Queen was La Reine, because La Reine de Terreur didn't fit, and so I'm going to keep with the theme and call this thing Le Roi, which means the king in French, because I'm original. So at this point I realized that I have like 0 bulk. Like I have bulky-ish things, like Delmise and Blastoise and Victini and Komodo, specifically, as things that can actually switch in and take hits, and like Hooper on the special side, I guess. But basically, I wanted some dedicated walls, and a lot of the things that I needed could be, like, I needed clerics, I needed stuff like that, so walls are kind of what I was looking for at this point. And a mon that I got really interested by when I figured out the full depth of its ability was Comfy, because this thing gets a unique ability, which is Triage. Now, I read it and I was like, okay, increases the priority of healing moves by 3, so that means you increase any healing move this thing gets to the same priority as Fake Out. And this thing gets healing moves. It gets Synthesis to heal itself, for example. And I was like, okay, so it's a reasonably bulky, you know, fairy type. 110 speed F is really handy. Combined with 90 defense and 51 HP and a good typing with leftovers, this thing can be annoying. It's reasonably fast, it's not too weak, so I can run like Hidden Power plus Fairy Stab and, you know, deal with things pretty well. And then I looked into Triage more, and it's not just Synthesis that gets priority. This thing also gets priority Leech Seed and +3 priority Draining Kiss, because that move heals your HP. So any move that heals this thing's HP gets +3 priority, which means if you're about to get swept by a Hydreigon, or like even just like a Dragon Dance Salamence, you can hit them with a +3 priority Stab, a super effective fairy move, which probably won't kill because it's not very powerful. You know, it's base 50 move from base 82 special attack, but you might be able to revenge them from a certain range, or if they've taken rocks damage, if they're running Life Orb, etc. Super nice to have. Combined with the fact that it's reasonably bulky already. The HP stats a little bit of a letdown, but other than that, you know, it's bulkier than a Rotom on the special side, for example. Unfortunately, that bulk is a little bit underwhelming, but with lefties and the fact that it's reasonably fast and gets priority healing, it's actually pretty decent, because it means like a Scarfer that does 40% to it, it can always heal up before it gets hit. So this thing also gets like aromatherapy, which is really nice. It can calm mind up and that kind of stuff. So gave me a cleric, which I liked. A really cool move. It gets taunt. Taunt's always useful. It gets U-turn, so I can get initiative and all that kind of jazz. So at this point, I was still looking for more bulk. I'm still a bit lacking in that regard, so I was like, let's just get like the bulkiest mon that's around, and I decided to grab Registeel. Oh, sorry, first nickname for this is Coffin, because Shroom was like, oh, name it Couch, because, you know, it's comfy. And so I named it after the comfiest piece of furniture I could think of, which is a coffin. Yes, I am so edgy. So next I grabbed Registeel because I need another Stealth Rocker. At this point the only rocker was Nidoking. I'm like, you don't want to run Stealth Rocks on Nidoking every week, so I was like, I will get another good one. And I wanted a Steel type because it switched into a lot of things I needed at this point. Like, so I wanted another Ice Resist just because they're really handy, another Rock Resist outside of Nidoking and Komodo because I needed something that can just like hard switch into Stone Edges, and I don't want to keep healthy, potentially sleep, or that kind of thing. Basically, a bulky Steel type is what I was looking for, and man is this thing bulky. Like, 8150, 150 is nuts. Unfortunately, no recovery outside of Rest, but Rest you can actually run on this thing if you can run like Curse, Sleep Talk, etc. And it gets like enough offensive coverage to not be set up fodder most of the time. Like, it gets Seismic Toss, which is really handy, it gets like Earthquake, so it's not set up for most Steel types, but it doesn't really do much damage. 75 attacking stats is a bit bad. But it does get enough coverage to just not be completely awful. If I really want to be that guy, I can run Rock Polish Registeel, but I don't see that happening. It gets Thunder Wave, and Thunder Wave is just amazing. It gave me what I needed. This thing is going to be called Manstein, because back in like Gen 4, its sprite was basically doing a Nazi salute. It was either Gen 4 or Gen 3, and Manstein was a Nazi war general. So I'm a terrible human being, but Registeel isn't a terrible Pokemon, so I decided to get it. I don't really have anything great for a Ghost type because my Dark type is Hooper, which still gets hit neutrally by Ghost. So I was looking to pick up either another Dark type or a normal type, and saw this thing around and was like, I'm gonna get it, because Miltank is really freaking good. It's somehow still underrated in the format. Compared to like Registeel level bulk, it's not amazing bulk, but it just leaves hits, and then 100 speed is really nice to heal up before a lot of things hit you, and it gets really helpful abilities. So you can run Thick Fat if you don't have a switch into like a fire type, like a Damanitan for example. You can bring Thick Fat, Rocky Helmet, and just whittle that thing down. You know, don't want to take superpower, but you can usually deal with that kind of thing. You could switch into like Namaswine if you feel like it. Basically, Thick Fat just is a really handy ability to chuck on a normal type which has so few weaknesses to begin with. Scrappy means if your opponent does have a Ghost type, I can just run mono attacking Body Slam, so like I can run Rest, Sleep Talk, Curse with Body Slam and Scrappy and be fine, or Milk Drink, Heal Bell, Curse and Scrappy. That's the other thing this thing gets. It gets Heal Bell, it gets Recovery, so I can heal off status on my other mons, so that gives me my second Cleric, which is really nice. It gets like just enough offensive coverage to not be shit, kind of like Registeel. You can get Fire Punch and Earthquake to hit Steel types, or like Hammer Arm or whatever, Ice Punch to hit like Gliscor or Landorus, Iron Head to hit Fairies. So you can always just kind of run moves to not be complete setup fodder. It also gets Stealth Rock, which is just handy because now I have 3 rockers as opposed to 2, which is always nice to have another bulky mod that can set up rocks. Yeah, last ability this thing gets, Sap Sipper, is like if I need something to just switch into a Delmise, for example, or an opposing Decidueye or whatever, I can just run Sap Sipper and just take those grass type hits like they're nothing. So Miltank's a really cool mon. This thing is going to be called North Korea because, as Shroom said, they probably have a million tanks. And that's going to be the end of the draft. So we did allow 10 mons per team. Like I said, I'm not sure this is going to be the best draft for me. It has a lot of power. I basically went 7 rounds of straight up power and then 3 rounds of bulk. And you know, most of my powerful things can still switch into hits, so I'm hoping that's going to play to my advantage because that is my preferred playstyle. The main issue with this team is a bit of a lack of setup, which sounds weird given I've talked about the setup options of pretty much every mon, but that's usually how I pull bullshit out, is by setting up in some fashion. A couple of things I have this season aren't going to be able to, so like Nidoking, Victini, I mean Delmise can set up, but it's going to be rare, Blastoise can't set up. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. I also don't have a good Wish Passer, which is unfortunate. I was originally going to get Florges instead of Comfy, but that got taken. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but I don't know. It's going to be a fun season. I'm just going to smack things faces in, because that's what I like doing, and with a Hooper I bound, I can literally just bring like 6 Choice Scarfers every week and just smash things faces in. So I hope you guys are looking forward to this season. I will hopefully be doing consistent uploads if people battle me consistently and stuff like that. Team builders should go up after I finish my first week battle, which will be against Onesie Bayonet and an old friend of ours who should have beaten us last time we played him, but he done fucked up. That should be coming around sometime next week. You know, it's a bit rough at the moment because this is in between Christmas and New Year period, so people are busy and all that jazz. I hope you guys are keen to see a new team back, even though all it changes is the logo that's going to be on videos, but that's alright. I'm certainly keen to get back into the PPL, so I'm going to start building my week 1 team now, and I will see you guys in my next video.